Welcome to Food for Life Get-togethers. You may be here on behalf of an organisation, a community group, or as an individual interested in food citizenship and how you can engage, influence, and build your networks locally, nationally, and globally. I'm here to share social media from an engagement perspective, to connect with Get-togethers as a programme, as well as your community through food sharing in a digital way. Our programme values asset-based community development, and so this webinar is 10 tips that can inspire your social media planning. I've enjoyed being able to share what I've been learning and how I've been developing an online social media strategy for the purpose of community engagement. To introduce myself, my name is S.B. Cooper. I work in the North as a Regional Engagement Officer for the Greater Manchester boroughs of Rochdale, Salford and Wigan. My background is in community film and media. I have started a journey as a permaculture designer, and as a personal memory, in my early teenage years, social media had just come around. I was the first of my friends to get MySpace, which meant that to have any top friends, I needed all of my friends to be on there too. So for me, social media has been something that's been a big part of my way of connecting to both friends as well as finding and discovering new content that is related to my interests and having that sense of community through the internet. As we begin, I would like to share the hashtags for today. If you'd like to use social media and specifically talk about this training webinar, please use the hashtag #GetTogetherOnSocial. And any of your posts relating to good food activities, to community building and engaging content, please use the hashtag FFLGetTogethers. You have a workbook, and here you will find all of the links that will give you access to join the Facebook group, which is a national group used by many community organisers as well as our engagement team to keep people updated through social media with the Get-togethers programme. And there is a Twitter network list at the North Twitter profile that I've set up and managed. And you'll also find each individual Twitter channel here so that you can engage with us through Twitter, sending us direct tweets. Social media for social impact. Social media is great for connecting with your audience, and this presentation will break down how you can participate in online social media campaigns to meet your organization's objectives. The 10 top tips are for anyone on social media, whether you're starting from scratch and you want to include some of these tips in a social media strategy before you start tweeting, and others who have an established profile may like to try out some of these one by one and see what the difference is in their social media through observing the analytics. But overall, these tips can be included in a strategy that will encompass an entire year of social media content. So please don't think that you have to go and do all of these 10 top tips tomorrow. By social media, I aim to share more than one platform. However, this initial training was designed for Twitter. It's now included Facebook, but there are more sites than these two to be able to use social media effectively, and many of them have a very specific audience, which we can discuss later in the chat if you want to know how this might relate to other social media platforms. Define a strategy for social media. To measure impact, identify key partners and tools to increase reach through social media. Schedule and practice social networking techniques by participation in our World Food Day Get-togethers digital campaign. Experiment with these 10 top tips to recognize how and when your audience engage. Tip number 1. Know your audience. Being able to understand why and what people engage with over social media is helpful to stay motivated. It provides you with further insight to be setting realistic goals. It's an ongoing process of learning about the people who care about the same things as you. Over in the workbook, there are some questions to start you off by identifying who your audience is, and then working through to find out when you'll be aiming to engage them. But now, whilst we're doing the presentation, we will broadly look at audience having these characteristics. Those who will resonate with your organisation and ethos. Those who are members of your community and organisation. The people who live in the same geographical area, and the people who have the same interests and ambitions. To help you identify key partners and your audience, it can be helpful for you to use your followers to find new followers. Again, someone who has sent in their Twitter handle for today, thank you very much. Erin, we're going to look at some of your followers to see if any of these people may be connected to the ethos and the interests of get-togethers, and then if we follow them, then that can help us to connect and share resources and be engaged with each other's content as we go through continuing a social media campaign, strategy, all of those. So it can just be really easy for you to see who is it following people that are following you, and that way being able to then connect with them. Another example here, so Higher Folds. Thank you, David, for sharing your Twitter handle. So we'd look at how we can get to know who is it that's following this community group, community centre, and then being able to see what they do, what they're tweeting about, and if they're of interest for us, we can then follow them, and we can give them a message over, if they follow us back, a direct message, and we're gonna follow, show you that. So before I forget, we would then add them to this list because they are in the borough of Wigan. Yeah, you can see that. And there might be things that are really interesting that we can connect with them and reply into their comments. We won't go into all of that now. But I hope that helps in terms of how not only thinking and writing down who your audience is, who you want that to be, but then going into Twitter and finding them through using, even looking at then who is this person following can be really good to get to know other local community groups. So you can see that there are similar accounts that we're following. Language and tone. Keep your audience in mind when you are writing your social media posts. Pay attention to detail. Give your followers content that doesn't require a dictionary. Be wary of acronyms, and if you think that you can't fit it all into one post, then create a thread. Use the comments on platforms like Facebook, where you can then include more details about what it is your original post is talking about. It's recommended that you keep original posts quite short and with plenty of line breaks so that it's easy to read. Use local language relevant to your community. It's okay if you don't feel confident to write your own content in a different language. You can find content from local organisations and share them. For example, there have been translated versions of the public health information towards coronavirus. This resource can be shared through your channel and is then available to your community. So please don't think you have to start writing things from scratch. Just find your partners and have a great way of sharing what is relevant to the people in your community because you know who they are. Here is an example from Kirkley's Welcome of an infographic created elsewhere in a different language to support people in your community accessing the resources on how to stay safe at the current time. You can see that they've tagged in 10 different accounts to be able to share this widely, and they have had a number of engagements on this tweet in particular, showing that it's a really valuable resource for people. Tip number 2, finding your partners. Actively find the accounts that your objectives align with. Follow them and then start conversations with these accounts to build your social network. For example, during the lockdown, some organizations have begun working locally. By finding their social media, you can keep connected in an informal and a casual way that also shares relevant content from their community to yours. Finding your partners helps learning from experience. You can see how they've managed to engage or even disengage audience. When an account follows you back, that's a great time to break the ice. To find out what they like to see in your feed, you could ask them, and you can also tweet or direct message them to retweet particular posts that are relevant to what they want. For example, a new follower notification arrives. You can decide whether to publicly or privately say thank you for following them, and then you can give them a reason to say something back to you. You should never underestimate the power of making the first move. Interact with your top followers. We have a ability to look at Twitter analytics. We can scroll down and see the top followers for each month, which can help you if you click on their profile and see how they engage by clicking on the tab that says Send Tweets and Replies. From then, you could always send them a tweet or direct message to connect virtually. Now I'm going to show you Twitter Analytics. This opens up in a new page by pressing More and going to Analytics. It's a new website. You can have options of checking on the homepage or individual tweets by month. Here you can see at the top a 28-day summary. Unfortunately, I've not been tweeting as regularly as I have done previously in months. And here it gives you a tweet highlights. So your top tweet, your top mention, and what we're looking at is the top follower. This is a way that you could see that month who's followed you, who's got a really good reach, and how you can engage with them through having a social media strategy. You can do this month by month, and it allows you to see how well you've done in engaging accounts that are really influential with high followings. So for example, if we wanted to connect with sustainable food places, the local, who are a national partner of the Soil Association and have lots of really interesting resources in terms of being a food citizen. So they would be great to kind of include in our strategy. And that might just mean we tag at food places in our photo images and hope that they will be able to then retweet what it is that we're sharing. So that's how, for example, we might be able to benefit from looking at analytics, seeing who that top follower is, and whether you mention them or tag them in some of your content. It's a really good way for you then to make sure your tweets are reaching a wider audience. Tip number 3. Define success and set goals. Clarify your organization's main objectives. For example, your social media might be a platform for awareness raising, which increases the amount of registrations. Another example may be that you have an objective to be using asset-based community development to strengthen communities to access food, building on skills within the community to grow, cook, and eat together. Your goal may be then using SMART goal setting. 2. Use social media to provide ABCD content available to local organizers. Increase the engagement rate of these posts to 3%. Each month, scheduling for ABCD posts and sharing through direct messaging to targeted accounts. Keeping an eye on comments and replies as live engagement takes place. Reviewing the impact each month to recognize how engagement is progressing. By identifying and producing SMART goals for our social media accounts, each post, reply, like, and comment serves a purpose. To measure our progress towards our goals regularly, we can use Twitter Analytics to compare these over time. What is engagement on social media? Shares and posts that mention your account are helpful to know who is spreading your content, while comments, replies, and likes are helpful to see who is replying to your content. A great way to structure engaging content is through knowing the type of response you aim to receive from your audience. Here you can see how I have used hashtags to talk about what this social media webinar is going to be doing. And there's a link here to click. I've tagged in up to 10 accounts. This is an image rather than what visual this link uses. It was the same one in the end, but by having it as an image attachment, that can help with the algorithms that there's a content to engage with, and it allows me to tag these accounts. And you can see here, each tweet you can go onto the analytics. So the impressions, number of times that people saw this tweet on Twitter was 249, and then 13 people engaged. We can go on for a breakdown of that, of what that engagement looked like. And you can see here that the link clicks, it was 2, but you know, these are ways in which we can observe and recognize how well our social media use of language, our call to action, how well those are working. And it's something that we can experiment with. So another tweet could have the same link and say something different, and we could see how that is then engaged with. A good thing to look at as well is that time of tweet. So this was in the morning. The peak times are different. Again, that's why we use tagging, because it keeps that tweet alive for longer, because all these people who are in our network would have had this tweet in their notifications section as being tagged. You can see here that our regional team in Scotland have included another national partner of the Food for Life Get-Togethers programme to share this and encourage it being part of the networks in Scotland. You can set up lists specifically based upon location, interest, or demographic. This is great to use as you start your partner analysis, which means you can add the accounts as you go. If you do not want to follow an account, but you have an interest in their content, lists allow you to do just that. And as you follow or find new accounts, you can add them to the relevant list. Whilst on social media, use your lists throughout the day to listen to what they're tweeting about. It's easier then to be able to engage with their content. This is a demonstration on how to use lists. You'll see above your profile on a desktop computer is the tab Lists. Here you can see from our North profile, there's been a number of lists created. I've done this through location in our test and learn accounts, as well as by the general theme of each Twitter account, so a national, education and community, there's global health and food, and that just allows you to share, to be able to see and then share tweets specifically from some of your engaged groups. So this is a Get-Togethers network, and here you'll see people who have engaged and registered and done events through Food for Life Get-Togethers. You can see at the top there is 25 members. Unfortunately, no one's following this, but because it's a public one, people are able to action together. If we wanted to see what lists they've created, you can see here that will be a public list that was allowed 52 members. We can start following that, and then we'll be able to see the live feed of who they have, these 52 members in that group, as an example. But if you're going to do it just for your own Twitter contacts as they come into, or you follow people or they follow you, you can see here there's an option to edit the list, manage the members, and these are the people who are currently engaged or have been part of this webinar. So thank you for Our Lady of the Missions Primary School who's submitted your Twitter account to be part of a list today. Here's another one, Edinburgh Community Food. So I'm going to add you to this public list. In this demonstration, I'm going to show you how you can not follow an account, but still add them to a list. For example, you go on to the dot menu, find the suitable list you want to add them to. Here you can see that there is a lock, which means it's a private list that I keep, so I can just observe who's tweeting what. And I would then be able to see everything they tweet without necessarily following them by going here onto lists, looking here then in the Rochdale, and they would come up under this whenever they next tweet. Your target audience will have crossovers of interests and reasons for following your account. So a community campaign is an opportunity to reflect those values in different ways that appeal to different audiences. It's important to know that a tweet could last only 18 minutes, even at peak times, which, unless you include the accounts you hope to respond into the tweet through tagging the images and using @mentions, using the direct messaging, then they might not ever see your tweet. Currently, there's the trend of social media takeovers. Could you invite a member of your community to post on your feed for a period of time? This is showing respect, trust, and appreciation for their individual voice to share their perspective. It can benefit you by increasing your following based on their influence and bringing to life the work you do for the people in your community. Call to action. Encourage early engagement with a post. This can boost the feed ranking. Comments, likes, retweets, shares, and views are all ways of measuring engagement. Tag accounts in your network into the images you share. Mention people relevant in a reply to your original post. Direct message your engaging posts to those people you're targeting. Here I have written a tweet that encourages people with a call to action to retweet this post, and I will add them to a public Twitter list. You can see I have added an image which has allowed me to tag up to 10 accounts. Please do retweet this. And you can see here as well, there's added in an extra line here where people can then reply if they haven't found out about our webinar. You still have time to include them or send them the link. To demonstrate organic engagement and understanding algorithms on Facebook, I will show you from our Food for Life Get-Togethers community public group. To show you a little bit about what the group's about, it's a group for anyone who would like to make connections in their community through good food. That's what Food for Life Get-Togethers is all about. This is a safe and impartial space for you to share your ideas, experiences, and in some cases, challenges, seek advice, and swap tips, recipes, and stories. We want to bring together all those who believe we can strengthen our communities through good food and want to take positive action towards this. So if that fits your description, please do search Food for Life Get-Togethers community in your top search bar here and join the public group. You can see here the members, and anytime you want, you can post in here and add photos and tell us about what you've been up to in your community relating to food, sharing, growing, cooking. And for example, I've posted here today a video link on YouTube that came through the Eden Project Community's Zoom meeting today around social eating projects. So I wanted to share that with other people in this group. But as you can see, it's been 3 hours and one person's liked it. There's been no comments and no shares, which will mean that not a lot of people who are members in this group will have received a notification about this. However, I'll scroll down a little, and here is another video made by Spa Nursing Home, and that's an update from their Food for Life project. This has been uploaded as a video directly to Facebook in the group. So I'll show you again just quickly how you do that. You'd go here, press into photo, and any content that you want. So having a video that's watchable, it will play automatically. That's really good for content and algorithms. So 9 people have had a reaction to that. So you can press here, get different reactions. You can also comment and share, and shares will help that video being put across different feeds. But it also means that it's likely to come into my notifications. So you can see here, I clicked that notification and I was shown this directly. So the more people who engage on a post, the more likely other people who are either friends with you or are members of the same group or like your page, depending where you're posting, they will get that notification to say, go and look and see what this person's posted. Because that's what Facebook likes to do. It likes to have early engagement on these content-rich posts, which then encourages more people to go and look at this and interact too and start that connection and response. It's possible to expand your reach and impact during a community campaign by linking social media accounts like Twitter and Facebook, either on the platform or through using programs like Hootsuite or TweetDeck, where you can schedule posts across multiple platforms. Explore the tools available to you. Some are free, others have a cost to them, but they can include more than one social media and platform. Some social media platforms have this built in. For example, using an Instagram account, you can share from Instagram images that cross-post onto Facebook, Twitter, for example. There can be drawbacks to this type of cross-posting, where if the characters are longer, for example, it will cut things short in Twitter, depending on how much time you have to give to social media. There are tools where you can schedule what you're going to tweet before the day. But I do recommend that you keep an eye on your social media platforms and engage with people as those responses, replies, or retweets come in. Tip number 6, tweet early and often. If you think about social media being small interactions on a global scale, don't feel like everything has to go into one tweet. There's a maximum number of 280 characters for Twitter, so this actually encourages you to break up a topic you're talking about into several tweets across a day or a week. Keep returning to what you're talking about. Because, as I mentioned, tweets don't necessarily last that long, neither posts on any social media will be seen by all of your followers. If you keep talking about the same thing, that allows your audience to really get to know who you are and what you're about. Tip number 7. Now we're going into some of the engaging content. You could start a photo competition. A competition can be a great way to encourage interaction. You can set a theme for the submissions, and you can let them know how it will be judged and what the winner receives. Remember that you can keep things community-led and encourage people to interact with the competition entries by giving them the power to decide the winner. The entry with the most retweets wins. An example that we have is the World Food Day recipe sharing. Whether you could start a photo competition with this. Tip number 8, build a Twitter storm. To share with you what I mean by a Twitter storm, you can see in Twitter there are trending topics. This is what many people at this time on this day are tweeting about. It could be a particular hashtag that has been set up or is being used to raise awareness of a particular campaign, but it also can include just a few words that lots of people are using on Twitter at this time. So the storm is many people across the world tweeting about the same thing, which is why we are asking you to join in World Food Day. What's happening? This is where tweets that are trending, how we are aiming to use World Food Day as a hashtag, which if we go and search, You can see many of the Food for Life get-togethers accounts are using World Food Day, and others wider than our network. So it is looking at a global scale of tweets and how we can individually on our Twitter accounts be part of this storm. When you're doing your own Twitter storms, consider what you need to take action on and how your account can encourage more people to start talking about the same topic in order to drive change. There are many ways that we can use direct messages to send private messages to our followers and to bring them into that forecast. You can set a date, give them the hashtag, and invite those followers to join the conversation with you. We're going to look at the power of social media throughout of this, and citizens have the power to influence the influencers. The power of social media. Social media has increased the capacity of an individual to influence even the influence. Consider your role as a food citizen. Who has the power to break down barriers for other members of your community? Directing tweets to a person in a position of power, that might be a local councillor, an MP, a head teacher, for example. You can clarify the need for change, give them a clear campaign ask, and include any relevant hashtags. You can drum up support by sending out emails or direct messaging people in your network to do the same. So as an example of how we can use our Twitter to campaign, here is some examples of asks that World Food Day from the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations have suggested. So we could use our Twitter profiles to take some of these calls to actions and tweet directly to our local MPs, to people in positions of power and influence, to make sure they are aware that these are priorities that people in the community want. And it is, crucial at this time when we are at risk of food insecurity from the summer where there's holiday hunger, and the ways in which healthy diets are currently not accessible for all people in our communities, and actually that food sharing, local growing, and connecting our communities to sustain the development of our community through food is possible. So World Food Day website has some of these things that you can download here. They are open source, Creative Commons. They are Creative Commons allowed to share, but not for making profit. Tip number 9. Share web content and start conversations. Share content from your website in a way that you would share with people that you seek to network and connect with. Sharing your reflections on what a link is can encourage people to read it more than a copied quote. Are there resources from your organisation that you can start a conversation about local food action by sharing that through a tweet or social media post? Do you have images on your website that can be used on your social media to tell a story and link back to that page for further context? Here I'm going to demonstrate how a web link has been shared through a tweet. It's related to Jeanette Ory. So Food for Life have tagged Jeanette Ory into the tweet and talked about what it is that she's been doing and why we believe that she deserves this Public Sector Catering Lifetime Achievement Award. The article itself is a lot longer, so it hasn't taken a direct quote, but it's summarized what has been said in the article so that we inspire people to click that link and read it. You can also see that it's been tweeted by Hootsuite. So when you're doing your partner analysis, these are great things to look out for. How are they using other platforms to schedule and post tweets that they know are going to be really important for people to be able to find out what's going on in this sector. So taking a blog, putting it on Twitter, tagging in Jeanette Ori allows people who are connected to Food for Life and to Jeanette to be able to read the article that's all about her achievement. And finally, tip number 10 is go live. In contrast to having pre-recorded content, streaming live allows you to interact with your audience whilst you're recording. Here are a few ideas of what you might like to live stream. A question and answer with your team or a special guest. A demonstration, how to grow, how to cook, for example. To share good news and stories from your community. Another tool for live engagement is using Twitter polls. This is where you can ask followers a question and it will show them the live results of people who have answered. So what you could do, example here, is just if you wanted to even ask a question, give a few options, and then you also can then allow people to choose multiple options and add their own. And that gives you an opportunity to share something interesting for people to engage with. If you've got something that you really want to find out, what's the community like at this moment, use the group here. Or you can do that through your Twitter account as well on a public question. So looking here at tweet. And here the options at the bottom. This middle one is the polling, asking a question. So the live options of getting some feedback directly from your community. How Twitter and Facebook work with YouTube isn't very user-friendly. These platforms would rather content be uploaded directly onto their website and to your account than shared from a third party like YouTube. This does impact your engagement, especially when it means that people who want to watch have to click out of that app. This is actually harder than it sounds when people are used to scrolling. So an option is to go live and record straight to your feed. Thank you for watching this social media engagement webinar. We hope that this has been useful for you to encourage new ideas in your Twitter or social media strategy. And any further questions, please do use the question and answer box and I will respond to you. There are further insights in the workbook, so please, if you have any problems later on when you're applying the top tips, then feel free to send me an email. I've included my contact details into that workbook, so you'll be able to get in touch with me following this webinar if there is anything more that we can support you with. I hope that the social media content planner, specifically looking at tweets for World Food Day, is of use for you, and there are a few that are in there you think would be useful and engaging for your audience to share what they like and what they are doing in sharing food. And it's completely acceptable that things at the moment are quite unreliable in organising any community activities, especially events. So we would like you to be able to engage through social media on this day to share the power of food and encouraging people to connect through social media. Thank you. Any further questions, I am happy to speak to you personally.